hope everybody is doing well. Guys, at the time in which I'm recording this, we are roughly 48 hours away from game day, from AP Psychology Test Day, May the 19th. And the purpose of this, while it may seem a little dry, going over some of these specifics, hopefully you'll find something in what we go through helpful and beneficial 2 days from now when you take this test on May the 19th. We are basically going to look over a couple of items, some test day overview specifics, some troubleshooting should you have any troubles on test day, and then of course how to respond to the FRQs that are on the AP test on May the 19th. But first things first, let's go ahead and look at the test day specifics, the test day overview. Your test is Tuesday, May 19th at 2 p.m. However, you need to log in with your e-ticket by 1:30, not 1:35, not 1:45, not 1:55, but by 1:30 Tuesday, May the 19th. There are some security related questions that you need to respond to, and you need all of that time to complete that and to make sure that everything is good to go and everything is up to speed. I will mention this several times, but make sure that you use Chrome. For the students last week that had issues, and for those who had no trouble at all, many of those who tested with ease last week mentioned that Chrome was what they used and were able to submit without any problems. For those testing, your e-ticket should be sent to you by today. Okay, 2 days, 48 hours before you take the test. If it has not been sent to you, make sure that you either contact myself, and my number is there. I doubt that Ms. Fiddler would be able to do anything today, but on Monday, there are 2 contact numbers there for Ms. Fiddler, but this is very important. If you do not have that e-ticket, either contact me or Ms. Fiddler for help and assistance, for you do need that ticket in order to test. Without that ticket, the test is not going to happen. Alright, and speaking of the test ticket, I just ran a Google image and altered it a little bit, but it should look something like this. With the Apple ID there, the app ID, and apparently you click on go to exam. Do keep in mind all the other information that's there. There was a checklist that was sent out to you all, I guess about 2 weeks ago now, and it would be very good and beneficial and helpful if you still have that available to at least fill out the top portion of this, so that way you have it handy and available. Alright, and guys, also another simple Google search of the success and or failure of the type of testing that has gone on for the past week. If you notice some of the headlines that are there, these headlines would probably not instill you with a world of confidence. Okay, while the test submit ratio is good, it is far from perfect. Okay, the College Board has professed a very, very high success rate, but some of the testimonials and some of the message boards of students and parents that have tried to help their kids would indicate that maybe the College Board is fudging the numbers a little bit. But it is worth noting that even with the Patrick Henry students last week that tested, most that did test online, most, not all, were able to submit without any issue. Okay, but do keep in mind that there are always exceptions to the rule. There's always horror stories. And speaking of troubleshooting, what I would strongly encourage you to do, if you have not taken an AP test before, or you did not take one last week, that the one on Tuesday may be your one and only, I would talk to some of your friends that have already tested. Okay, because try as they might, I do not know what you see. I don't see what you see. Okay, and some of your friends maybe had no issues, and ask them what they did. Ask them to walk you through exactly what they did. And if you had some friends that maybe it was not very successful with them, maybe it was a monumental waste of time because nothing submitted. Ask them what they did so that way you can avoid those errors potentially. Okay, make sure that you've logged in at 1:30. That is important and that is key. I'm going to send an all-call here in a few minutes for students to check for their e-ticket, and another all-call will go out around 1 o'clock on Tuesday to remind you to make sure that you log on by 1:30. It is important, it is essential, it is key. Use Chrome. I mentioned that before and I will mention again. Students at Patrick Henry and nationwide that had no issues taking this and submitting it did find Chrome to be much more user-friendly. And although I do not have it specifically in the PowerPoint that I'm going through, I would also encourage you to make sure that you have nothing that's competing on bandwidth in your home. Okay, so for the roughly an hour that you're testing next Tuesday, maybe your younger sibling that's binge watching something on Netflix, have them just kind of cool it for a bit, or gaming online, brother or sister gaming in the other room, just to cool it for an hour. Okay, and if your room maybe the Wi-Fi signal is not very strong in your room, I would relocate to an area where it is a little stronger. These things will help in the long run. Once the testing officially starts at 2 p.m., okay, there is very little I can do to help you if the test will not load or submit. Very, very little I can do. Okay, so if you are contacting me at 1:55 saying that you haven't gotten your e-ticket, it's too late. Okay, it's not going to happen, at least on Tuesday. Okay, so that's why this is going out today, 48 hours before. Please be proactive. All right, and in the event, heaven forbid, you do take this test, you do everything right, and for some reason it doesn't submit, or you throw caution to the wind, you wait to the last minute and you are unable to submit, you will have 48 hours to apply for the retake. The date of the retake is June 5th at 4 p.m. I've talked to other AP teachers that tested last week, and the consensus from them, I won't know whether you've tested or not. I will not know whether you wish to retake the test or not. It is entirely up to you to get the ball rolling on that. Now, certainly, I and Miss Fiddler would be more than happy to help you, but the initiative has to be taken on your part in the event that Tuesday doesn't work for you. And guys, even with this troubleshooting that's here, this does not guarantee success. Okay, I've heard stories secondhand of students who did everything right, who dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's, and it still did not work for them. Okay, so keep in mind that this kind of testing, while we were about a week and a half in, so some of the quirks hopefully will have been worked out. Still, it's not a perfect science. Okay, and I will keep my fingers crossed. I will light a candle and say a prayer for you on game day, but still keep in mind that, there's still a very good chance that it may not work. However, if it does not work, as long as you're able to look over those questions, okay, your retake will be similarly formatted. Okay, look over the questions. Just take stock and personal inventory in what's there, because you're not going to see the same thing if you choose to retake, but it will be very, very similar, the formatting, the structure, and things like that. So it's not completely a wasted effort and exercise. Before we go on to the AP overview itself, let me say that from what I've heard of teachers that tested last week, this portion, this leg right here of the test is what I'm most concerned about. The actual content on the test, I'm not nearly as concerned and worried with. But speaking of the content on the test, AP test overview. Your test on Tuesday is roughly 50 minutes long. It is free response questions, 2 of them. There are no multiple choice. It is entirely FRQ based. Part 1 is 30 minutes. You will have 25 minutes to work and write or type and 5 minutes to submit. Part 2 will be 20 minutes. You'll have 15 minutes to work and write or type and 5 minutes to submit. I would, even though there is supposedly a timer with the test on your computer screen, I would set maybe an independent timer. And just be mindful that you do not have all day to take this. The test itself is open notes and open web. Okay, now while that sounds like a blessing up front, and certainly there's a lot of benefits, do keep in mind that you are under a time constraint. So I would use the notes, any notes that you may have, any online resource that you may consult. I would use that as a last resort. One of the things in the tutorial that the teachers got, and you all had and may have watched something similar with this about a week and a half ago, you're probably not going to complete everything in both parts. There will probably be parts that you just don't have time to get to. And if so, that's fine, so they say. Although I do encourage you to try not to leave anything blank. All of your answers must be in complete sentences. Try not to leave anything blank. All right, and then to go through some examples, some of the submission examples. Both of these that I'm going to go through are released 2014 FRQ questions. This one I like because it does go through some of the stuff that we, or at least you all, went over in the previous units since we've been out on quarantine. But again, from 2014, Abram recently graduated from high school and began his first year at a 4-year university. Explain with an example how experiencing each of the following in the past may affect Abram's ability to succeed in college. In the note, we've got the 3 bulleted terms there that I need to respond to. And then the second part of the first question. His first year was very difficult. He found that he was not as successful as he would have liked. Explain with an example how each of the following may help Abram be more successful in the future. And again, the bulleted terms. Now, note with both of these, and it will probably say in so many words with what you say on Tuesday, that definitions without examples do not score. Now, it does not mean don't give a definition, but just don't leave it at a definition. Okay, they are truly grading you on your example, for the example shows that you know what you're talking about. All right, well, with the first one, and I know it is purposely made difficult for you to see. The first one, I did paper pencil and then snapped a photo of it. Presumably, I would upload this using that method. Write your initials and AP ID at the top of each page, which I've done. AW and then ID number. And then answering the question, Abram and his jaunt at a 4-year university. Authoritarian parenting is like a dictatorship. Abram might do poorly in college because his parents are not there to tell him what to do or how much to study. Okay, if you are going the paper pencil route, make sure you print as neatly as you can. And if you read through what I've written there, you will note that there's probably some spelling and definite grammatical errors that are in there. Okay, don't fret, don't worry about that. You are not being graded on your spelling, nor are you being graded on your grammar. Make sure, though, that your answers are in complete sentences. And folks, before I move any further, it's worth noting, I have this bulleted, okay, and also if I were to eliminate, if I were to erase the term authoritarian parenting, there is enough information here that would let the AP reader know that I know what I'm talking about. Okay? All right, continuing with that first section, FRQ, again, the paper pencil method. Note the one up at the top again, this one was done in pencil. It's not as easy to read. Okay, again, my initials, my AP ID number. Okay, and the 2 at the bottom here, I used ink for. The pen is a little easier to read. And certainly if you want to pause this and read through the stuff that I've written, that would be fine, but you could also point out the spelling errors that are there, the grammatical errors, and again, you are not being graded on that. Okay, and let me just go ahead and mention, if you use the paper, pencil, photo upload method, make sure that your handwriting is as neat as possible. Okay, not one of those, I don't really know what this word means, so I'll make my handwriting a little sloppy right here. Don't do that. AP reader, if they can't read it, they're not going to. Note also I put some spacing there. Okay, this has not been lumped together in a giant paragraph. They do not expect you to do that. They're not looking for that. Now, you're not going to be graded down if you do that, but I did include some additional spacing. So if I were to use the paper pencil method and I'm going through and maybe there's something extra I want to put in with identity versus role confusion, I have some space there. Now, if you don't leave space, that's fine. You could always draw an arrow from there down below, but it just helps. And this is the second portion of the 2014 released AP FRQ. Note that this one is more research related, and I'll go ahead and read this out to you, and we'll go through a couple examples and submissions. In a study of power and self-image, participants were not told the true purpose of the study. Instead, they believed that they were participating in a business simulation. Researchers randomly assigned participants to a high power or low power condition. In the high power condition, participants recalled a time when they had power over others. And in the low power condition, they recalled a time when others had power over them. Participants were asked to adjust the height of an electronic graphical image of themselves to reflect their personal appearance. Results indicated a statistically significant difference in participants' perceptions of their own height across the two conditions. Participants in the high power condition created taller self-images than participants in the lower power condition. And then I have the bulleted statements that I would need to respond to. Now, with this one, I did not go paper pencil, but instead I went with a Word document. Certainly an advantage of this, you can easily cut and paste portions of this so you don't have to keep on going back and forth. I only answered a couple of these. I didn't answer all of them. Okay, but as a Word document, a few notes to point out. There are a lot of spelling and grammatical errors that I purposely left on this, and that's fine because, again, you are not being graded on your spelling. You're not being graded on your grammar. However, you do have to be mindful of time. And, making corrections to that sort of stuff does eat into that time margin. Okay, also note that I've included my initials and my AP ID number. All right, and then my first bulleted statement to respond to, or rather my first two, the independent and the dependent variable. Okay, and notice what I've written there, typed there rather. The independent variable is what is changed or manipulated in an experiment. In this experiment, the IV is the type of power condition the participants were asked to recall, either high or low power condition. All right, a one-sentence definition if you can. Okay, you don't have to because you're not being graded on your definition. They're grading you on your example. Okay, and there's no need to belabor your example. I know some of you can answer some of this stuff with maybe a sentence. All right, some of you, the minute you start writing, it'll be a whole paragraph. Do keep in mind that if you want to add to it, or I would answer the questions first, and then if you want to add to it, then go back and make additions. All right, note how this is broken up. Do not run your responses into a giant paragraph. You would not be marked down for that, but it does make it a lot easier for the AP reader to go through this. Note, I've answered my dependent variable answer. This one I left blank, or I didn't finish. Hopefully, for those watching, you could finish this statement. but then this one right here about statistical significance. Not only have I misspelled it, but then I also included this with it. Oops, what is this? Now, if I were taking this, if I were going through this on game day, bearing in mind the time constraints, I go through all of these other ones because I know them. Statistical significance, I'm drawing a blank. What in the world is statistical significance? Now, some of you have no problem with that, as AP Stat more than covers this. But for some of you, this maybe it's not statistical significance. Maybe it's something about proactive or retroactive interference. Maybe it's the central route to persuasion or the peripheral route to persuasion. Maybe it's the sympathetic or the parasympathetic nervous system, where when you're at home under no time constraint, you would have no problem with, but under the gun, testing anxiety gets the better of you and you are just drawing a blank. Okay, now you could use your notes, but locating this sort of stuff in your notes could be difficult. And that's assuming that you have a decent, organized notebook to draw from. This website, allydog.com, this one I definitely recommend. Okay, but while you can use online resources to help you respond and answer to these questions, it does come with a catch. Again, allydog.com is a good one. Okay, I mean, truly, you just enter the term and it will give you more than enough information there, but do keep in mind that that eats up time. Okay, be mindful of time. Use resources like this as a last resort. Okay, so you've answered all the other questions and you're just filling in what you're missing. Okay, or you've answered all of your questions and you have a couple minutes to spare and there's maybe one or two terms that you were kind of riding the fence on. Okay, again, last resort because you don't have unlimited time. And it is also important not to plagiarize. Okay, how easy it would be to go on to this website right here and just cut and paste what they put in and include it in your FRQ. You may get away with it, but there's a very, very, very good chance that you will not. Make sure that your answer is in your own words. Okay? Having said all that, guys, I do hope that you found this beneficial. At the end of the day, I'm not overly concerned with what's on my AP test. Okay, but what I am concerned about is potential fallout from students that for some reason are unable to submit. Okay, but hopefully if you take to heart those things that we went over at the very start of this, the troubleshooting and the test overview, if you take this sort of stuff to heart, if you be proactive, hopefully you can stem some of this sort of stuff. Alright folks, best of luck to you on Tuesday. Do keep in mind that should you run into any issues, contact information is there at the bottom. This will also be included in a separate document. You all have a great, blessed day.